Mon Star from Silverhawks always had an intimidating look as this towering armored beast, and the show doesn't exactly hide that in any way. But he was much more than his looks, although his dramatic ride on a giant space squid with insane tech features didn't help his case. Obviously, a normal spaceship would have been too modest for His Criminal Majesty, but Mon Star was not just a mindless mob boss with super cool tech. After all, he was the reason the Silverhawks existed in the first place. More on that later. The guy's been a constant migraine for the galaxy of Limbo, and the Silverhawks spent the series chasing him, trying to shut down his crimes, while Mon Star laughed and yelled his lungs out. And while he has a long list of henchmen by his side and is known for his ruthlessness, you can't help but notice a few flashes of softness when he offered his trusty minion a chance to escape. So you see, Mon Star is a complicated villain, to put it in one simple box. And that's why we're here today, to know a little more about this intergalactic space boss. So let's get into it. The mob origin. Mon Star as a space gangster, not a lone monster. To understand Mon Star, we first need to start with what Silverhawks actually was. Created by Rankin Bass, the same production house behind the famous feline group of humanoid aliens, the Thundercats, Silverhawks introduced a team of cyborg heroes. Set in the 29th century, the team was sent to the imaginary Limbo galaxy to fight crime. The main antagonist of the series was Mon Star, a filthy rich alien mob boss who escaped Penal Planet 10, a maximum security space station that housed ruthless criminals, not once, but twice. So you could call him a serious headache for Commander Stargazer, the old man who had spent over 300 years as the lawman of Limbo. In the pilot, Mon Star was called a quintillionaire. Yep, not a millionaire or a billionaire, a freaking quintillionaire. Before Mon Star, I don't think I'd ever heard that word used to describe anyone, not even Elon Musk. A quintillionaire? I mean, I don't understand why Mon Star even bothered robbing a bank. Buy the damn bank, the planet the bank was on, even the moon beside it, and he would still have enough left over to get another armored space squid for himself. Now, Mon Star was the head of the Limbo mob and ruled with strict command. He ran the local underworld, and very few people dared to question him without paying for it. In his normal form, he was cruel, sharp, and already stronger than a normal person. But when the Moon Star, a giant satellite, sent its rays to Mon Star through his transformation chamber, his body was encased in the spiked armor most fans remember. He was most recognizable for the star-shaped eye patch he wore. And after he cried aloud the incantation, "Moon Star of Limbo, give me the light, the muscle, the menace of Mon Star," he could fire the light star beam from that messed up star-shaped eye. And while the show doesn't use it all the time, using it on people to punish them was not exactly beneath Mon Star. And right beside Mon Star, we have Yes Man. The name couldn't make his role in the crew more obvious. The guy was a cowardly snake alien who compulsively said yes to whatever Mon Star, or anyone else for that matter, ordered him to do. But Yes Man was also extremely loyal to Mon Star and operated the transformation chamber, so Mon Star trusted him with his life and even invited him once to bathe in the moon glow. That's just Mon Star's weird way of acknowledging their friendship, I guess. Hardware, a brilliant inventor and engineer, was Mon Star's weapons expert, and he also developed Sky Shadow, Mon Star's pet, a small dragonhawk-like space creature. Skyrunner was the large armored squid that Mon Star rode after his transformation. Melodia was the only female member of the mob, and her weapon of choice was a keytar, a combination of a keyboard and a guitar called the Sound Smasher. Windhammer was a pale blue-skinned humanoid with big pointy ears. He carried a large tuning fork that could control weather and create destructive weather patterns, even in space. The spy of the mob had to be molecular, because a shapeshifter inside a criminal empire can always come in handy, huh? Buzzsaw, staying very true to his name, was a robotic thug with a gold-colored metal body. He had sharp circular saw blades of varying sizes all across his body, and thus the name. I mean, the man was covered in blades. How obvious could he make it? Buzzsaw had saws on his head, shoulders, and arms, and he could spin them at you at ridiculous speeds. And if the situation called for it, Buzzsaw could spin the blade in his head, the blades in each shoulder, and the blades in both arms all at once, so anything near him could get sliced. Can you imagine being the Silverhawk assigned to handle this guy? Also, I just remembered, Buzzsaw happened to be the name of a robot from the Transformers series as well, so there's that. Other members of the mob included Pokerface, who ran Mon Star's gambling operations. Mumbo Jumbo was a robotic minotaur-like alien who only spoke in grunts and had the ability to grow in size and strengthen at will. Then there was Time Stopper, who was the youngest member of the mob and had the limbo clock on his chest. Every time he pressed the button on the clock, it would count down to 0 and freeze time for 1 limbo minute. And that 1 minute might not sound like a big deal to you, but in a fight, that's a make-or-break advantage. Zero, the memory thief, stole memories and recorded them on cassettes. And that's interesting because tell me you're an 80s show without telling me you're an 80s show, right? Then we have Smiley, who is an expert mummified boxing robot with a laser eye and an intimidating jumping ability. He was brought back to life to attract customers to the Starship Casino through fights. With an absurd but impressively dangerous team right by his side, Mon Star was indeed a proper criminal kingpin. His mob had people who were useful to him, and if your power helped him hurt the Silverhawks and Stargazer a little more, congratulations, you had a seat at the villains' table. We're introduced to this galactic Dawn in the first episode of Silverhawks, where he's on the loose and looking to settle his score with Commander Stargazer. Stargazer is the other half of Mon Star's story because the lawman versus crime lord theme runs deep here. Stargazer understood how bad Limbo could become if Mon Star was free. So Earth sent a team of biomechanically enhanced heroes, the Silverhawks, to capture him. And like most 80s villains, Mon Star had a weakness because the hero team needed at least one way to survive the episode. A shot from the disintegrator could strip him of his armor and force him back to his normal form. The disintegrator could destroy any object and blow it to pieces, but the only catch was that it didn't work on gold. Mon Star could also use his almost indestructible armor if exposed to a huge amount of electricity. So the man can rule the underworld, tame monsters, and blast enemies, but electricity is where he draws the line. Nice. Super Mon Star, when the Moon Star power gets upgraded. Now, we already know that Mon Star's powers came from the beams of the Moon Star, and he used that energy to become his armored self. So if a villain was already huge and armored, the only next logical step was to make him even worse. It so happened that the Moon Star had an eruption, and pieces of it scattered around. But let me tell you, these were no ordinary rocks. These were dark red, spiky stones that carried energy within them. Cyclops found a piece and picked it up, but the fragment was soon snatched by Pokerface. He tested the stone with his laser cane, and it absorbed the laser blast. And so, Pokerface, being Pokerface, saw this as an opportunity to impress his mob boss and took the stone to Mon Star. Mon Star used the stone to test its worth, and the result went far beyond his usual power-up. His strength skyrocketed beyond normal levels. He also got jets on his elbows, which he could use to fly through space or across a planet. These jets could also fire red energy blasts. So you see, the monster form was not his origin by itself. His whole power system revolved around the Moon Star. Once its light hit him, Mon Star transformed into a larger, robotic, reddish armored version of himself. He also used the Light Star in this armored form to hurt his enemies and hypnotize them. So the show basically showed us the many possibilities of handing premium tech and cosmic upgrades to an already overpowered space mob boss. Thundercats 2011 cameo. Cool reference. Not a real origin. Mon Star made a brief appearance in the Thundercats 2011 episode titled Legacy. In this episode, Lion-O's spirit is accidentally sent into the Book of Omens and into the body of his ancestor Leo. Through him, Lion-O experiences the past. It's an important episode where we learn about Mum-Ra's ancient rule, the Stones of Power, and the old relationship between the cats and the other animal races. During Mum-Ra's speech about how every species had its place, Mon Star briefly appeared on the monitors. He wasn't an active character in the story, and this cameo in no way officially announced that Thundercats and Silverhawks shared the same universe. But if you look really close, I mean really close, you might notice how alike Mum-Ra and Mon Star were in their their own ways. Mum-Ra was an ancient demon priest and the main antagonist of Thundercats. Meanwhile, Mon Star, the space boss, proudly held the villain spot in Silverhawks and ran an intergalactic mafia. Both Mum-Ra and Mon Star, although stronger than normal beings in their base forms, could transform into stronger versions of themselves by reciting incantations. Interestingly, both characters were voiced by Earl Hammond, who also voiced Jaga from Thundercats. While the 2011 quick cameo of Mon Star didn't give us anything new about his origin, it did give the audience a nostalgic throwback to Silverhawks. And for a character from a one-season show that goes way back to 1986, wouldn't you agree that that's a pretty strong afterlife? Dynamite Comics relaunch, the modern Mon Star origin expansion. Dynamite Comics brought Silverhawks back as a new comic series in 2025, with Ed Brisson as writer and George Cambadise as artist. This relaunch was announced in October 2024 as part of Dynamite's Warner Bros. Discovery Global Consumer Products collaboration, and the first issue arrived in January 2025. The premise still remained the same, with Mon Star on the loose and Stargazer building a team to catch him. Well, I guess some things never change. Brisson described Mon Star as the ultimate cosmic crime lord and compared him to a monster version of Al Capone. That made Mon Star the force around which the whole plot revolved. The heroes were not warriors who had taken it upon themselves to fight evil as their moral duty. They were cherry-picked by Commander Stargazer, who had put his retirement plans on the back burner to form a law enforcement crew capable of bringing the criminal empire of Mon Star to its knees. So without this mob boss, the Silverhawks were no more than metallic heroes looking for a case. It was because of Mon Star that the Silverhawks became a special unit. One mob boss was enough to drag Limbo back into fear. However, the Silverhawks program went dormant during Mon Star's long incarceration, which was a good thing for Limbo. Soon the Silverhawks were put on standby, and they ultimately became obsolete. Then Mon Star decided to break out, but the system built to stop him remained untested. Issue 5 takes us nearly 100 years back to Mon Star and his gangster crew on Bedlama, before Stargazer's early team brought him down. In the 1986 series, Mon Star's mob replaced Bedlama's governor with Molecular in one episode. The Dynamite flashback angle, with Mon Star's crew exerting control over Bedlama nearly a century earlier, ties everything together. The series explored how Mon Star was no longer just a mob boss pulling strings with the help of his syndicate. He affected not only the characters' lives, but also the world around them, and he was the reason the planet carried scars. Brisson himself admitted that he grew up watching Silverhawks, watched it right after Thundercats, had the collectibles, and even read the Marvel Star comics. He also said it was a show he had thought of often and wondered why it never got more love or a revival like Thundercats. With the 2025 comics, all he wanted to do was pour his love for the franchise into something tangible, calling it a book he wanted to write for a while. And you know, that's real sweet in my opinion. So you see, Mon Star has been around long enough, and he's always been a constant pain. It's not only the spikes and beams from his eyes that made him scary, but the fact that even decades later, with the Dynamite Comics version arriving in 2025, Mon Star still remains relevant in a time where every second seems to give us a new antagonist more villainous than the last. I guess that's how nostalgia works. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video about Mon Star and the Silverhawks standing tall in all their metallic glory, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments which version of Mon Star you prefer, the original Moonstar-powered mob boss or the modern Dynamite crime lord. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day!